The MacDonald House bombing was the worst of a string of attacks by Indonesian saboteurs during Konfrontasi, the Indonesia-Malaysia confrontation that happened from 1963 to 1966. The incident has been making the headlines again because Indonesia named a Navy ship after the two men responsible for the attack. A 25 pounds (11.33 kilograms) packet of nitroglycerine, with a timing device, was planted on the mezzanine floor, near the lifts. At 3:07 p.m. on March 10, 1965, the bomb exploded, tearing a hole in the floor, ripping out a lift door and reducing the correspondence room of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank into a shambles, according to a Straits Times report. The blast was so powerful that all the windows in buildings within a 100 meters radius as well as the windscreens of vehicles in a car park across the street were shattered. 3 people died, and 35 people were injured. Elizabeth Susie Chikwehoe, 36 and mother of 6 who was private secretary to the manager of the bank, and Juliet Go V. Kwang, 23 and an only child, were killed in the blast. Mr. Muhammad Yasin Kezit, 45, remained in a coma and died later in hospital, leaving a widow and 8 children. 2 Indonesian Marines, Usman Haji Muhammad Ali, 25, and Harun Said, 21, were charged in court on March 16 for the bombing and hung in Changi Jail on October 17, 1968. In protest over the hanging, 400 students in Jakarta stormed the Singapore embassy and attacked the consul's residence as well as the homes of 2 Singaporean diplomats, Usman Haji Muhammad Ali, 25, and Harun Said, alias Taha, 21, were charged with having knowingly caused the deaths of 3 persons. The incident has been making the headlines again because Indonesia named a Navy ship after the 2 men responsible for the attack. A 25 pounds (11.33 kilograms) packet of nitroglycerine, with a timing device, was planted on the mezzanine floor, near the lifts. Arrow in the picture points to the exact spot on the stairway at the mezzanine floor of MacDonald House where the time bomb exploded. The concrete wall separating the stairway and the correspondence room of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank was completely demolished, exposing a view of the bank's car park on the other side of Orchard Road. At 3:07 p.m. on March 10, 1965, the bomb exploded. The explosion tore a hole in the floor, ripped out a lift door and reduced the correspondence room of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank into a shambles. The blast was so powerful that all the windows in buildings within a 100 meters radius as well as the windscreens of vehicles in a car park across the street were shattered. The sweepers were cleaning the road in front of MacDonald House after the explosion which torn out the door of one of the lifts. The workers were clearing away the rubble. 3 people died, and 33 people were injured. The March 10 attack on MacDonald House happened at the height of Indonesia's confrontation against newly formed Malaysia, which then included Singapore. The extent of the damage on the mezzanine floor of the 10-story building made it a simple matter to determine where the bomb was placed near the lift. Lim Chin Hin, the comprador of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank, had a narrow escape when the bomb exploded at MacDonald House in Orchard Road. Then Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Toh Chun Chai called on victims of the explosion. Juliet Go V. Kwang, 23 and an only child, was killed in the blast. Funeral of Juliet Ko, who died in the bomb explosion at MacDonald House. Elizabeth Susie Chikwehoe, 36 and mother of 6 who was private secretary to the manager of the bank, died in the blast. Children and relatives of Madam Elizabeth Susie Chu, a victim of the MacDonald House explosion at her funeral service. The MacDonald House bombing claimed the 3rd victim with the death of Muhammad Yasin bin Kezit, 45, a car driver. Damage in different parts of MacDonald House caused by a time bomb. A cloud of plaster and bricks had rained onto the employees in the bank. At that time, about 150 employees were finishing up for the day, as the bank had closed 7 minutes earlier. Orders were given to hundreds of workers still at their desks on the upper levels to evacuate the building. Staff were instructed to evacuate via the fire escape at the back of the building. Outside, nearly half the road in front of the building was blocked by a damaged station wagon, with the other half by a wrecked car belonging to the Japanese consulate. Both were damaged by the blast. Within minutes, at 3:30 p.m., the reserve unit, which specialized in crowd and riot control, arrived. Police took up positions on both sides of the road to prevent looting. After the building was cleared, only policemen and foreign correspondents were permitted to go near the bank. The case of two Indonesians charged with the murder of 3 workers in MacDonald House in Orchard Road came up for mention in the 9th Magistrates Court a week after they were first charged. Camille Suhaimi, the counsel for 2 Indonesians charged, acting DSP JS Kose at the hearing of MacDonald House explosion case. Tan Ornbok at the hearing of MacDonald House explosion case. Minutes before the bomb explosion at MacDonald House in Orchard Road on March the 10th, 2 visitors had alerted people in the building, Mr. Justice Chua was told. Mr. Go Namsoon, a food hawker, and Mrs. Joan Harrison, a housewife, told the court how they noticed a peculiar smell in the building. Were 2 Indonesians, charged with the murder of 3 office workers at MacDonald House in Orchard Road, wearing jungle green uniforms when arrested at sea after the MacDonald House incident? This question was brought up at the MacDonald House bomb blast trial. The trial's witness, Limapur, a bumboatman, testified that on March the 13th, he picked up the 2 accused who had been hanging onto a piece of wood and calling out for help. Work began on MacDonald House to repair the massive damage caused by the bomb explosion. The damaged section was sealed off by a plank wall.